everyone. My name is Wenchao, and alongside me here is my partner Alondra. And today we're going to talk a little about the H-2A Temporary Agricultural Workers Program. So, what is the H-2A program? So, the H-2A program, or H-2A Temporary Agricultural Workers Program, often called the H-2A Visa Program, is a program that allows or helps American farmers fill employment gaps by hiring workers from foreign countries. So it allows employers to hire foreign workers for seasonal agriculture jobs when there is not enough U.S. domestic workers to available to fill those positions. And it is really designed to ensure that American farms and agricultural businesses have the labor they need to meet production demands, particularly in those peak harvest seasons. And there are several requirements for an employer to be eligible to hire workers for the program. So first, they must show that there is not enough U.S. workers that is willing, qualified, and available to do the job. And second, they must offer fair wages and conditions. Three, file a application with the U.S. Department of Labor. And fourth, and finally, get approval from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So why is this program essential? This program is really essential because it allows the U.S. agriculture because many farms struggle to find enough domestic workers willing to do these seasonal labor-intensive work. And without these H-2A workers, these harvests could go unpicked, leading to really major economic losses for the industry.
So now understanding a little bit more about what this program is and its importance, I'm going to dive more into the specific questions that our project focuses on. So the first one is to what the extent of dependence on H-2A workers by these American farmers. Our second question is, are employers supplying H-2A workers with the necessary resources? And third of all, we're looking to examine the commonalities among the top five states. We're really trying to get a better understanding on how this program impacts employers and what kind of demands it requires of them. So yeah, these are our three main focus questions.
Yes, and I will start us off with some key findings. So the states that have the highest number of H2A workers are California, Arizona, Washington, Florida, and Michigan. And also farm workers and laborers are the highly requested job titles for H2A workers.
And then for our second question, our key findings are that over 80% of H2A labor contractors cannot provide housing to all requested workers. And this is similar when we look at this based on the top 15 job titles. Um, the top 15 job titles requesting H2A workers are able to provide less than 35% of H2A workers with housing. And for our third question, looking at commonalities, the top five states requesting H2A workers are looking to cover to meet the lack of domestic workers, but are looking to cover 80% of their worker need by H2A workers. Sorry. And the second key finding for our third question is that the top five states requesting H2A workers are able to provide less than 20% of H2A workers with housing. And lastly, the top five states requesting H2A workers are each respectively paying hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation for to have these H2A workers work for them. So yeah.
Yes, so the data set we're using is from the U.S. Department of Labor, specifically their Foreign Labor Certification performance data, which is one of the most comprehensive and publicly available resource or sources on this topic. While other sources do exist, like the H2A employer data from USCIS, we chose this data set because it provides much more detailed insights, including employer-specific data and worker counts. However, still in this data set, which contains over 200 or 200 thousand rows and data points, it requires some cleaning due to missing values. So let's go deeper into the first question we wanted to explore, which is to what extent do various agricultural occupations depend on H2A workers? From our analysis, it's clear that many agriculture jobs rely on H2A workers, particularly in states with large farming industries, which is California, Arizona, Washington, Florida, and Michigan, who consistently request the highest number of H-2A workers. And this makes sense because they are the states that have the most fruits and vegetable farming. Um, and this high demand of H-2A workers in these regions really highlight that a major labor shortage exists for U.S. citizens, and demonstrate how crucial immigrant workers are to keeping the agricultural sector running. Without these workers, many farms would struggle to meet production demands, which could have really serious consequences on our economy.
So now to dive deeper into our second question, which is are employers supplying H-2A workers with the necessary resources? Um, Yeah. So, according to U.S. labor laws, all H-2A labor contractors must provide free housing to all H-2A workers under their contract. So, this chart highlights um, if a case was considered to be an H-2A labor contractor, and then looking at the percentage differences and if they did provide housing or not, based on one column alone that they would that classified yes or no if they provided housing and transportation. Um, and as we can see, over 80% of these cases said that they did not provide housing. But after taking a deeper dive into our data, there were multiple columns listing the housing address, and looking at the data file structure, it says that this housing address was for H-2A workers, which I found quite interesting because most of these are saying that they are not providing housing, yet they still provide a housing address. So this caused me to now look at the percentage of housing being provided through a different perspective. So I was now to now better understand the need being met for housing, or the resource demand for housing. I looked at the total number of housing units provided against the total number of H-2A workers requested, and this showed that more than 80% of cases do not have enough housing units for all requested workers. And again, this was similar amongst the top 15 job titles requesting H-2A workers, where none of them had enough housing to accommodate the requested workers. Um, and yeah, this just highlights the resource heavy demand that requires from employers, and the additional resources that should also be provided to these employers to be able to meet these demands, because they clearly depend on these workers a lot, as Wenchao mentioned. And our third question looks at the commonalities among the top five states. So again, as Wenchao mentioned, um, there are these top five states are requesting millions of workers of H-2A workers to meet the demands of domestic workers. It California alone requested over 40 million H-2A workers in 2024, um, which is a very high number. And looking a little bit more amongst the similarities amongst these top five states, we see that more than 80% of agricultural uh, that these states are depending on more than 80% of their agricultural labor needs to come from H-2A workers. Again, highlighting the clear lack of domestic workers available. And this dependency rate was calculated by dividing the total number of requested H-2A workers by the total workforce needed. Again, highlighting just how critical this program is to employers. Sorry, right before I move on, these states are also paying hundreds of millions of dollars to compensate these workers. Again, highlighting the resource intensive demands that this requires from employers.
Yep. And as a recap, our analysis really highlights several important findings. First is that many agricultural occupations are highly dependent on H2A workers, particularly in states with large-scale farming industries. Second, most employers fail to provide housing and transportation despite the legal requirement. And third, the top five states that rely on H2A workers face major resource shortages, making it difficult to fully support the workers they request. And these findings emphasize the critical role of immigrant workers in the United States agriculture sector and raise really important policy questions on how this program should be changed and implemented and enforced in the future. That is it for our presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you.